Because of testing, some of you might need help on the review that we couldn't do during the classroom. So wanted to go over all of these questions that are on the review that's in Canvas. You might not have had them in this order, but you can go through and find them in the same order. And so you can pause and fast forward and skip through and just watch the questions that you need. But you may not have had, like I said, this will be all the same questions that you had, they just won't be in the same order. So the first question, what is the length of one side of a square? So we know we have a square. I always like to draw a picture, and squares have all four sides equal. If the area of a square is 121, and it's in your notes, it's not on your formula chart, that the area of a square is side squared. So we know that the area, always write the formula, then plug in the numbers that you have. So we have 121 is equal to s squared. So the question is, what times itself, what times what is 121? Well, you can just start trying 5 times 5, 6 times 6, 7 times 7. Or if you remember, then you can shortcut, well, side squared, to square something, to unsquare it, you do the inverse, which is a square root. So we square root both sides. You hit that on your calculator. And you get then that the side length is 11. So each side would be 11 inches. And then the perimeter of that square, there are 4. So if each of these sides is 11, 11, and 11, we can take 11, multiply that by 4, and get that the perimeter is 41. So our perimeter is, not 41, 44. Our perimeter is 44 inches, and our side length is 11. So what is the area of a trapezoid? As soon as I see the word trapezoid, I'm going to draw myself a trapezoid. Has a base of 12 and 16. So I'm going to put my 12 up here and my 16 here. Remember, your bases are the sides that are parallel to each other. And a height. Height's always perpendicular. We've got our little h going on here. And a height of 5. Well, if you go to your formula chart, you'll see that the area of a trapezoid is half of base 1 plus base 2 times the height, or if you prefer, you can do base 1 plus base 2 times the height all over 2. Okay, so we know our base 1 is 12 and our base 2 is 16. Doesn't matter which one you use where. Times 5 divided by 2. So if you add 12 and 16, you can do this all in one step, but you have to use parentheses. Okay, otherwise you do 12 plus 16 and you get 28. So if I get 28, then I do 28 times 5, and then divide by 2, and you get 70. Again, you can do this all in one step. That would be centimeters squared. But you do have to type it in, 12 plus 16 in parentheses, times 5 divided by 2. Find the height of the trapezoid. Again, we have another trapezoid. Find the height of the trapezoid if it has bases of 10 and 12 and it has an area of 66. So let's go back to this formula, and I prefer this one. It doesn't matter which one you use, but you do have to deal with that divided by 2 here. So we have that our area is 66, so I'm going to put the area is 66. My bases are 10 plus 12 times the height divided by 2. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do all the math that I can on each side, so I know how to do that. 10 plus 12 is 22, and 22 divided by 2 is 11. So that means that it's 66 is equal to 11h. Now, I know that that's weird to some people out. If you don't like that, rewrite it. 11h is equal to 66, because for some reason, when it's 66 is equal to 11h, people don't know what to do. But when you switch it around, all of a sudden they do. So we divide both sides by 11, and we get that h is equal to 6 inches. So your height is 6 inches. Okay, so we have circle B. Let's draw a circle, name it B. And we have ABC is 70 degrees. So we have this angle right here that's 70 degrees. And the radius is 11. So here's the picture that we have. Find the arc length and the sector area. Now, depending on which formula you use, if you do this with proportions, let's look at our arc length. So arc length, that's a portion. So arc length, let's make sure we understand. Arc length is just this piece. Well, that is a small piece of the whole circle, which is a small piece of the proportion. So some of you might set it up with proportions, and you would do 70 over 360. The measure of the arc over 360, is equal to the arc length, we'll just call it x, over 2 times pi times r, which is the radius, which is L, or which is 11. So now we cross multiply. So we would do 70 times 2 times pi times 11, and then we would divide by 360. So if you do 70 times 2 times pi times 11, you get 4838 and some change divided by 360, and you get 13.4. It says round to the nearest tenth. You get 13.43. So we're going to look at our 4. That's in our tenths place, and we're going to decide, okay, the 3 is not going to power up, so we get that our arc length is 13.4. Now, some of you might use your arc length as you do where you follow the formula. So your arc length is equal to 2 times pi times 11, right, times 70 over 360. So some of you do it like that. So you'll do the same math, 2 times pi times 11 times 70 divided by 360. Either way, you get 13.4. That's your arc length. Now, if I want my sector area is almost identical. The only thing that changes is this bottom piece. So we have 70, if you do it with proportions, then we do 70 over 360 is equal to the area that we want over the entire area, which is pi times r, which is 11 squared. So you would type in 70 times pi times 11 and divide by 360, or if you use the formula, then you would get the area of the sector is pi r squared times 70 over 360. So either way, you do pi times r squared times 70 divided by 360. You're going to do the same math regardless of how you set it up. You get that the area of that sector is 73.91, which means it is 73.9 inch or centimeters squared because rounded to the nearest tenth. So we get this area is 73.9, and then that little green arc is 13.4 centimeters long. Okay, so that is your arc length and your sector area using either proportions or the formula. Okay, what is the area of a kite? So we go and we look on our equation, our formula chart. Okay, so the area of a kite is 1/2 of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. Well, diagonal 1 is 10, so it's half of diagonal 1, which is 10, times diagonal 2, which is 18. So I do 10 times 18 divided by 2. Some of you might prefer diagonal 1 times diagonal 2 over 2. So we do 10 times 18 divided by 2, and you get that the area of that kite is 90 inches squared. Okay, find the area of the gray part of the composite shape below. So a composite just means that you're putting multiple shapes together. So basically what we're doing is we're starting with the big rectangle, which is 18 by 11. Well, area of a rectangle is base times height, so 11 times 18 is 198. Okay, and then we want to take away the 4 by 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. And we also want to take away the 2 by 5, which is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. So we use base times height for all the rectangles. And you would use whatever shapes, okay? We have holes, right? We have a hole, and so we have to take those away. If you're adding on, if you're putting two shapes together, then you would add them together. So we take 198, and we subtract 20, and we subtract 10, and we end up with 168 centimeters squared left. What is the area of a regular octagon with an apothem length of 6 inches and a side length of 9? All right, so here's what's important. It's not even necessarily, you don't even have to be able to draw it, but I will draw one. You got to remember, okay, a regular octagon, that is a regular polygon. that's when we use the area is 1/2 the apothem, A, times the perimeter, P. So the apothem, I want the area, it's half of the apothem, which was 6. The perimeter, well, the side length is 9, and there are 8 sides, so the perimeter would be 9 times 8, so the perimeter is 72. So I can do that right there, 72. You can also do it all in one step. So you do 6 times 72 divided by 2. And you get that the area of that octagon is 216 inches squared. Now it's important, an octagon has 8 sides, a hexagon has 6 sides, right? And a pentagon has 5 sides, a decagon has 10 sides, so just kind of keep that in mind so you're prepared for any shape that might show up on the test. What is the height of the parallelogram? So I got a parallelogram here, so let's draw one of those. And what's the height? So I'm going to put an H right there. That's my question mark. If the base is 15 and the area is 52.5, well, if you go to your formula chart, the area of a parallelogram is base times height. Well, I gave you that the area was 52.5. The base is 15, and I'm asking for the height. Well, 52.5 equals 15 times height. So we divide by 15, divide by 15. We get 52.5 divided by 15 is 3.5. So the height is 3.5. And that would be inches. All right, another question about a square. What is the length of one side of the square if the area is 400? So remember, we have area is side squared for a square. So the area was 400. So what times itself is 400? Remember, the shortcut way to do that is to take the square root of both sides. So 20 times 20 is 400. So my side length is 20 meters. Then it says, what is the perimeter? So the perimeter would be all 4 sides that are 20. So we would take 20 times 4, and we would get that the perimeter is equal to 80 meters. The last one, what is the radius of a circle that has an estimated circumference of 81.7? All right, so the first thing we need to do is go to the formula chart and find the circumference formula. So circumference is 2 times pi times r. So now we just start substituting in what we know. Well, the circumference is 81.7, and that's 2 pi r. Now, don't forget, pi is a number. There's 2 ways you can do this. If you need to, do the math that you can do. Well, 2 times pi is 6.28, and then some decimals, right? So now we can divide. Don't let the decimals throw you off. Divide by 6.28 on both sides. So 81.7 divided by 6.28 is 13. You want to round to the nearest whole number, so it's 13.00955. So the radius would be 13. Now there's another way you can do it. Okay, you could also do this all in one step. 81.7 is equal to 2 pi r. Well, that 2 pi, that all goes together. So I can divide by 2 pi and divide by 2 pi. Now, here's where you got to be really careful, though. If you're going to do this all in one step, you want to divide by the 2 and the pi. So you have to type this in on the calculator. 81.7 divided by parentheses 2 pi. So if you're going to do it all in one step, you have to remember the parentheses. That's where multiplying it out and getting the 6.28 is a little bit easier because you don't have to remember that. And you're still going to get that radius is 13. Okay, so just remember, if you divide and you do it all in one step, you have to use parentheses because you're dividing by multiple numbers. Okay, so go back through your review, try it again if you need to, and just keep doing it until you can do it